Wake up. It's time for Primal Scream. Hey, welcome back to the Primal Scream. I'm Matt.
And I'm Todd.
We're going to start this over because, we're not going to restart over, but this is like our second take. Anyway,
we're just jabbering way too much.
October 23rd, 2013. Where you been?
Out of town.
Like, we're out of town.
West Coast.
So, for those of you at home or in Japan,
Domo arigato for downloading the podcast. We appreciate it.
Yeah, there is a reason why we haven't posted a podcast in probably a week.
Probably a week. It takes two. It takes two to tango for the Primal Scream.
Right. I don't want to do it without my buddy.
Word.
So at the beginning of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about some news that's going on in the world. What do you got for me?
Oh, I was going to tell you that we were talking about government, and we were talking about like the Amish dude that got busted by the FBI.
Amish government?
No, the Amish dude who got busted by the FBI for not pasteurizing his milk when they did a big raid.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I have family who are living in Australia. And Australia has the same kind of bans on unpasteurized food. Yeah. So this company is selling their unpasteurized milk as a health cure. And it literally says on the bottle, it's like Cleopatra's, I'll find the exact name, Cleopatra's facial milk something or other. And it's just unpasteurized milk. And so people buy it like crazy.
Cleopatra's milk?
I want to say it's like
Cleopatra's breast milk?
No,
dude, I would buy 3 gallons of that. I've never had breast milk.
I can't remember exactly what it's called. I will find that out. I apologize. But it has to do with them getting around the government, banning all this stuff.
You can pretty much put anything out on the market, I'm assuming, as long as it says dietary supplement. Can't you? I mean, isn't that the workaround around the FDA?
Oh, I don't know. Because they do just about everything that says that. It's like all the new pills for everything says not FDA approved.
Yeah, it was a huge thing back in the day when protein powders and shakes and things like that came out. Muscle and fitness guys or bodybuilders were buying big jugs of protein, and they would take a scoop, and you had no idea what you were getting.
Yeah, it could just be a bunch of fucking baby powder. How awful would that be?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's changed, but yeah, dietary supplement pretty much meant
just about anything you wanted. So I mean, there's a need for regulation, so we at least know what's in shit. But then the hard part is when the FDA or the USDA starts making decisions on what will be in things or what will happen when production happens of things. And I think it gets a little bit more muddled. They're just going to be taking care of us and keeping us safe. That's fine. I was telling my incredibly lovely wife today that I was listening to NPR,
Jesus, and they ass kisser.
Some company in China is making these beef jerky sticks for dogs, right? Dog treats.
Are they dog?
No, they're not dog, but they're like killing animals and making them sick. And all they're doing is saying,
"Oh, the beef jerky treats are making animals sick when they eat them."
Yes, and they're made in China and they're unregulated. And all they're saying is saying, "Hey, if your dog gets sick, take him to the vet right away and make sure you save all the extra of what they had." Just like
because we're going to grind them up and use them for dog treats.
Well, fuck. I was just like, why don't you just say, hey, don't use this product. It's killing your animals. Or
there's radiation leaking out of Japan's failed nuclear reactor.
We don't have to make my minimal comments extrapolated into these.
Well, I'm just saying if they're going to lie about dog stuff.
No, I'm not saying they're lying about it. I'm just saying, why is somebody not saying, hey, don't feed these things to your dog? It's coming from this company. With this sales pitch, don't do it. But
hey, I have something completely unrelated.
Fantastic.
Do you remember back in 2011 when we were having the whole Occupy Wall Street movements, all the different rallies, right? Do you remember the YouTube footage of the campus police officer just hosing down right in the face?
And I think it was UC Davis, I think.
Yeah, guess who just got $38,000 for mental anguish? That fucking dude.
Really?
Yes.
From whom?
The courts.
He sued the college for mental anguish?
All right. I will have the link up, right? I will have the link up. on the in the description to exactly where this is at. But if you go to RT, I tweeted it. And by the way, according to the enterprise that this guy works for, Pike is his name, was making $121,000, $680 annually when he was fired from the department. Campus security was making over $100,000 fucking dollars.
Wow.
Give me a break.
It is California, though.
What?
Cost of living is really high there.
There's some bullshit happening right there. There's some tomfoolery.
And now, did that person that he sprayed point blank in the face with a canister of, did they sue anybody?
No, I don't know. I have no idea about them. This was on RT today.
God, that is just absolutely ridiculous.
About him receiving, I'll get the exact, I'll get the exact quote in my descriptions. Or, you know what? Follow my tweet at Matt and Todd on Twitter. He got $38,000 for mental anguish because immediately he was bombarded with, "We're coming to get you, and you're a fucking douche."
How about you're a fucking douche? Yeah. Why would you? So you're gonna reap what you sow.
He was rewarded for
his actions,
for throwing out the "I'm a pussy" flag. Or maybe you shouldn't have sprayed a woman straight in the face with a huge goddamn canister of pepper spray.
Exactly.
Who was just sitting there, by the way. She wasn't even doing anything. On RT's website, on that link, it actually has a YouTube video of him spraying that lady. And he should have got death threats. He's a fucking asshole.
Yeah. You watch that video, it doesn't look like any thinking's involved. I know I'm sure it's a stressful situation and you're put in a really tight spot, but if you have people that are peacefully protesting, but I don't know, maybe they're calling him Nazis, maybe they're calling him an asshole, maybe they're calling him all these names, because he's a security guard, but I don't know. That's one of my problems with weapons sometimes, and I hate to turn it into that discussion all of a sudden, but he has the power or the position, and he used the power that was in his hands at the time. It was a horrible choice and a douchebag move, but it's like, it's like that cop that shot that kid in California when he had him handcuffed on the ground and he was standing over him. He took his gun out and shot him in the back point blank in front of everybody with cameras and said he thought he had his taser on him.
I think people have mental breaks. I think people are stressed out. I think you're put in a high stress situation and you react in a way, and you would like to think that all human beings in their minds are loving, caring people. But when you're placed in a situation where you're reacting, constantly reacting to people.
So let me add this to your idea that you had with Nick the other day, or Andy, or
George Michael. Are we good?
You can edit that out. Anyways.
No, I'm not going to edit. I'd love it. The Beatles, when I was talking to the Beatles the other day.
Yeah.
All right.
That
Yoko fucked that whole conversation up that I was having too.
When you said you did things that you never thought you would ever possibly do because of the situation you were in, can we say that and I can't believe I'm advocating for his side, I'm just trying to make a point of view. Could we say that guy was in a position that was so stressful that he did that? But part of it was the pictures of him like just casually with his arms straight out, just spraying her in the face without.
I have no doubt that he was in a very similar mindset that I was in, that any human being is in, when you think that you are in the right and someone else is in the wrong, and you're stressed out and you're ready for conflict. When you are bombarded with the idea that you are going to be reacting to conflict, go put your SWAT gear on. Go get your riot gear on. Hey, there's old people in wheelchairs going to the World War II memorial. Go get your riot gear on. That's fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You're setting people up for failure.
Those kind of things to happen.
For failure. Yeah, I mean, they did that in D.C. They had police respond with riot gear with old people who were in wheelchairs.
Right, World War II vets.
I mean, when you put a load, when you shake up a can of soda and then you give it to somebody, you're like, hey, try to open that, but try not to get any fizzy shit on you. Impossible. And that's what's going to happen. It's an accident waiting to happen. I feel somewhat bad for that guy because he allowed himself to be put in that position. He should have been trained better. He should have been able to handle those stresses better. But when you fuck up, human nature, when you fuck up, you have to suffer the consequences. That's the only way that you grow. And by him being rewarded money for being a mental pussy, all that does is say, hey, everybody, go out and be a little pussies.
Or go out and fuck up and you'll get paid for it.
Yeah, go out and fuck up. Go out and spray somebody in the face with pepper spray and then just say, I can't handle it. Okay, well, then we'll reward you. I still can't believe he makes over $100,000 for campus police.
There's a lot of pretty girls that you have to avoid when you're on campus. When you have that badge and that type body that he has, it's just...
I don't want to ridicule him. I don't want to make fun of him.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't make fun of him. You're right. Hey, I was one who was saying he might be in a tough situation.
Hey, good news. On Twitter.
Me when you see that.
Good news. A news report shows how Obamacare will save the country $190 billion over 10 years. Huh.
Probably talking to some fucking liberal.
We'll get into that later.
God.
Also on RT, NSA lies. Agency lacks evidence. It thwarted 54 terrorist attacks. What do you think about that? If the government was constantly putting out videos or statements saying, we kicked those guys' ass. Good thing we were spying on everybody.
Oh, by the way, it's top secret, so we can't really show you, but trust us.
But trust us.
It's taken care of.
We got number 32. 32, plot number 32. We took him down.
I think it's bullshit. That's just me. It's just excuses.
You think so?
I do. I mean, I think they're excuses even if they're true. Let me say that. Even if they've actually taken people down, I still think it's just a bullshit kind of...
just to be a douche.
You're so good at it. Go for it.
No, thanks. The head of the NSA, the guy that got up in front of Congress and said, "No, we're not spying on everybody." Oh, I misunderstood when I said no, I'm not spying. I took it differently, and what we're doing is we're taking different type of information. Well, maybe this terrorist attack, what you and I are thinking of as terrorist attacks, aren't what they consider to be terrorist attacks. Maybe they consider unpasteurized milk as terrorist attacks. And in that way, completely justified.
True.
You never know. Hey, what else you got over there? Anything new?
I'm at a loss, except that I'm just trying to recover from my vacay on the West Coast. Had a great time. You were invited. And got back.
I was invited to Puerto Rico or Costa Rica or where
it's the next best thing.
All right. Well, then you changed plans and you said, hey, we're going to California.
You were already out by then, buddy. Sorry.
I was out by then.
You were long gone. No, I've actually been out of the loop. It's one of the best part of our vacation is that we watched minimal television. If we did, we watched a little bit of football. But we did so much stuff that we just didn't watch any TV. And I got to tell you, I didn't bring a computer or my iPad. I brought it, but I didn't use very much of it. I was on my phone a little bit as normal, but it was pretty awesome to unplug for a little bit. We gotta be honest.
I bet there's a story of a lady who made a deal with her daughter, and they went a month or 2 months. I'll have to look it up to get the exact. I'll put it on the descriptions so that people don't think I'm bullshitting. But they made a bet with each other, and so they grounded each other from technology, from cell phone use, from computers. And I forget if it was for a month or if it was for 6 months. But when they got done with their time frame, their initial time frame, they were like, this was the best thing we ever did. Let's just continue doing it.
But I mean, I think most of it is that constant bombardment. I think that's. I mean, I don't mind being connected and seeing people are doing it on Facebook and catching up with people and things like that. But when you disconnect for a while, it just kills the noise. The noise is gone.
I have not been more than 3 feet from this since I got it. And right now, people at home who can't see this, I'm waving around my new Samsung Galaxy S4.
Is it
it's S4.
Is it the active? Is it the one that's waterproof?
No.
I would not get another phone until I get that waterproof one.
Well, I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Only AT&T. Verizon doesn't carry it.
Oh, really?
AT&T has a lockdown on that. Hey,
that sucks.
Should we introduce who we have here?
We have somebody. We have somebody else in the room.
Well, we do.
Oh, hey, who's that fine-looking lady over there?
Well, it's Nicole. Hello, Nicole.
Hello.
Hey, what are you going to be talking? I want you to school me on something. We've had a lot of controversy. I'm going to listen with some open ears. I'm going to try to do that today because Nicole has graciously volunteered her time to come in here and help educate us a little bit on Obamacare.
She's a nurse, but she's also in graduate school getting her doctorate. So she's been doing a lot of investigative kind of things into Obamacare and how it supports things or doesn't support things. And she's going to give us the 411.
And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the Affordable Care Act, which is also called Obamacare. Which,
if you want to get technical,
haters.
Just kidding. I think that when you place the word Obamacare in front of it, then it becomes something political versus something that
it's like somebody saying, hey, that Republican said such and such. Well, I don't want to hear it.
Exactly.
Or that Democrat.
Exactly. So ACA.
Okay, ACA, Affordable Care Act.
Affordable Care
Acronyms.
Act.
I'm going to write that down so I don't forget it.
Actually, a lot of it has already started happening, which people think that I think when you read the news or hit the websites or blogs, CNN, Fox, they're focusing on one small aspect of it.
They're focusing on the parts of the website that aren't working. Right? From when you're
It is a colossal fuck up though. I got to admit, it is a huge deal.
I only throw that in there because
they're focusing on
Stephen Colbert and
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
They're focusing on the individual having to have health care, which is a small part of the entire Affordable Care Act. So there's a huge other portion of it that nobody's talking about, which is related to the care that's actually provided by the hospitals and doctors' offices and medical care facilities that is actually improving because of the Affordable Care Act. Mainstream news is focusing on that one part where it's saying they're forcing people to get health care.
Right.
Which I think is
it's easy to fall into that because I fall into that.
Do you have insurance on your new phone?
No.
Okay, so most people have insurance on their car.
Because it's not going to bankrupt me if I drop it in the toilet when I'm masturbating.
But most people have.
I'm just saying it won't
most
bankrupt
people,
me.
you don't hear everyone up in arms about having to have insurance for their car.
Well,
it's not making mainstream news. It's not
correct.
The focus of everything, but our bodies, which we have one of, and maybe could get parts replaced if needed.
Oh, we've been talking about the 3D printers.
Everyone is up in arms that they have to have insurance to take care of their bodies, which I think is, as a healthcare provider, I think that having people with insurance is extremely important, and having them get the preventative care is extremely important. So a couple of things that this is going to do, and I think there's some misnomers out there, is that people are saying it's going to, bankrupt everything. Well, everyone doesn't realize that if people don't have health insurance, they're going to get care at the local ER.
Whether you have insurance or not.
Exactly. And
this, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna interrupt you every now and then just so that people can. So before the ACA came in, right?
Good job, man. You're a fast learner.
If you didn't have health insurance and you got your finger cut off, you go down the emergency room and you got fixed up. What was the repercussions to that person? I mean, what followed? If they don't have health insurance, do they just get nailed with a nasty ass bill?
Yes.
Okay.
Did we pay for any of that? Is that covered by any people who already?
Absolutely. We pay for it already. So if you walk in there with no health insurance and you have, not a dime to your name, the hospital will absorb that cost. And in return, everyone who does have insurance, those premiums are going to start to go up.
Okay. Because that's the way it was before the ACA.
Right.
Before the Affordable
and not everything
Care Act.
not everything has gone into play yet. That's spaced out over many, many years.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, right now, let's say part of the Affordable Care Act is to provide preventative health care. So let's say a person goes in and they have insurance now and they spend $150 seeing their primary care provider and they're put on an antihypertensive medicine for high blood pressure and it costs $30 a month.
Okay.
So we've spent $150 for their checkup, $30 a month for medications. Let's say that same person never sees a physician, goes into the local ER in a hypertensive crisis, has a stroke, strokes out in the ER, spends 8 to 10 hours in the ER, goes to a intensive care unit, spends a couple days in intensive care, 3 to 4 days in a step down unit, needing rehab, You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that we then just paid as taxpayers, as opposed to spending $150 and $30 a month for that person to have
for the preventative
healthcare. Correct. So there's a huge benefit to allowing people to receive that preventative healthcare, because we're going to pay for it one way or the other. So what happens is people say, well, emergency rooms don't have to treat them. They do have to treat them. In and I'm going to make sure I'm quoting this correctly, 86, Congress enacted the EMTALA law, which is the Emergency Medical Treatment Act. This means that hospitals' emergency rooms can be fined a tremendous amount of money if they refuse care to someone. So there's not an ER in the country that's going to refuse care to any patient. So we're going to pay for it whether or not those people have insurance or not. So otherwise the hospital risks fines. So this is not, obviously everything is being blamed on Obama, but this was done in 1986. So this hasn't been in place for many, many years.
Yeah.
So this is already happening right now. So if we do all the preventative care and see these people in the doctor's offices and treat them appropriately before they have to go into the ER, and the ERs get backed up with people who are there that could
take showers.
Well, or that are there for reasons that could have been prevented. And when you go in for a heart attack or something, you want to be able to get in right away, and you don't want your ER backed up. So you want to save it for people that truly have emergencies. So it's very important. I think that's a very important aspect of this Affordable Care Act, expanding healthcare to that millions of Americans that don't necessarily have it already.
Would you agree that Obama did not explain this well enough or roll this out well enough, or somebody didn't? I mean, because what you just said right there makes so much sense to me, but it's so simply put that everybody's focused on this one part, and it's this one aspect right here would free up ERs and it would help us save money. But we haven't heard anything about that. That's probably, to me, the biggest disappointment about Obama is nobody came out and said, this is why we're doing it. It's going to be awesome because of this, this, and this.
Well, it's very easy to be distracted by the fact that you're a middle income person. All of a sudden, the scare tactic comes out over the media saying that, oh, hey, Obamacare goes in, premiums are going to go through the roof.
Death panels are on their way.
You know what? The whole death panel thing didn't bother me particularly.
You don't think it scared the shit out of a majority of older people?
No, I'm not saying that it didn't scare the shit out of older people. I'm saying, to me, that particular thing didn't bother me. But the people that have to pay, that are already paying for this stuff, when they're barely getting by because they're all doing the right thing, they all have insurance, they're all going and getting their kids to the doctors to get their physicals because that's what the school's asking them to do.
Right.
When their premiums jump to twice that amount of normal, mine are.
Right.
I'm getting penalized double, almost triple for my wife being on my insurance. There are some real obvious negative repercussions of what is happening right now. And whether that is the scare tactic of the insurance companies, I have no idea. But the actual physical, financial reaction that is happening right now, I'm having to pay a ton of money more than I would normally pay. And I think that's going to be a crisis that sweeps over a lot of industries. I mean, there's already a scare, and I'll let you get back to talking about this because I do think there's positive things.
Absolutely.
But there was a story about how jobs are going overseas already because of obesity in the United States. Corporations are looking at the cost of employees, right? It's not just union dues. It's not just salaries. They're looking at the total cost of an individual. Now, if you make, let's say, $40,000 a year, you don't just cost the company $40,000. That company is spending close to $90,000 to $100,000 to employ you for that year because that is how much money the company is throwing out there for insurance to cover the other part of the insurance that you're not paying for. So when you look at the dollars and cents of it, and you tell a corporation that I know you were already thinking about going overseas because Americans, by and large, are getting fatter and more obese. And if you move your stuff overseas, not only do you have to pay a cheaper wage for your workers, but you don't have to worry about these fat fuckers. You don't have to worry about their health care. And that dollars and cents, I mean, we're already feeling that huge impact of lost jobs. We're trying to create more jobs. But if corporations are going overseas because they're worried about the dollars and cents of having to pay for workers, one of two things is going to happen. Either we're going to lose jobs because they're moving overseas, or what you're seeing now is that there's a limit. Isn't it like if you employ more than 50 people?
There are subsidies for certain companies based on limits, yes.
Okay. So all of a sudden you have people saying, okay, can you come in and work only 38 hours? Okay, good, because now you're not full time. And they start playing games. And I really want you to sell me on this. Mm-hmm. If Obamacare is so awesome, why is it that Congress doesn't have to pay for it like we do? Why is it that some states aren't having to pay for Obamacare like every other state?
They can opt out. So the states have an option of opting out and taking Affordable Care Act and enacting it in their state, or they can opt out.
But do I have an option? Do you have an option? Because if I don't have insurance and I don't pay for insurance from my company, I get penalized. Correct?
If your state's not taking the Obamacare, you're not going to be penalized under Obamacare.
I'm just saying.
Or the Affordable
I don't have any say over it. If my state is taking Obamacare and I choose not to do it as an individual, I'm going to get penalized for not having insurance. Right or wrong?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a very fine line. I mean, the idea of having more affordable care is a great idealistic view. I want everybody to be taken care of with the best treatment possible. But when you don't sell it, when you don't give the facts, and you have a huge opposition, you have a huge team over on the other side saying, well, guys, you really should probably move your businesses overseas or limit your workforce or just scaring the shit out of people, or hey, jack your premiums up, or right before the bill gets passed, because the bill hasn't gotten passed, let's take out the part where it says we're going to put a cap on the premiums that insurance companies can charge you. Let's just remove that cap. When you hear that as an American citizen, my immediate response, because I'm in the middle of the road, I've always had insurance. I've gone to the hospital for different things. My kids have gone to hospitals for different things. We've always had insurance. So I benefit, right? I've never been somebody that has not had the money to pay for insurance. So I don't know that side of things. I don't like being forced into something and having to pay double for everything. It bothers me a lot. And especially if it's so great, why isn't everybody doing it? Why isn't everybody being forced to do it? Why aren't congressmen being forced to do it?
Because they get free healthcare.
Fuck them. And if federal workers are laid off because of a government shutdown because those motherfuckers cannot make a decision, then you don't pay them back. And they shouldn't be getting paid. Can I get an amen?
Yes, you get an amen.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Wow,
Nicole,
that was long.
I'm sorry, I got on a tirade. Nicole, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I agree with some of that, and I'm my perspective is much more from the institution organization, like where the facilities where healthcare is being provided. So,
correct.
I have a much different perspective as opposed to from a consumer. So I am the one providing the care, and I see the benefits to what is happening with the Affordable Care Act and how it's going to benefit the people of America. So right now we have a broken system. I mean, our healthcare is absolutely broken.
I would totally agree.
We have, and these are just a few, stats here. We have nearly 46 million Americans uninsured. That's more than any industrialized nation. We have more medical errors, mistakes, medication errors, lab errors than Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, and the United Kingdom. The Institute of Medicine says that we have, and this is old stats, so this is probably much, much higher than this, that we have 99, right around 100,000 patients die each year from medical errors. It's estimated that unnecessary care, so over-treatment, which is also part of our medical legal system, so we're over-treating people, kills 30,000 Americans a year. That's the equivalent of a 747 airline crashing and killing everyone on board once a week. That's just over-treating people. So
when you say over-treat, what do you mean by over-treating?
So let's say
over-medicating?
Someone comes in and they come in with a headache. And the doctors are like, oh, we better run every test. They need an MRI. They need a brain scan. They need a neuroconsult. They need all this. We inject a medication into them that they have an allergic reaction to and die. So instead of treating the headache, we over-treat. So we're doing so many interventions because nobody wants to be sued.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, don't you think we have turned into a sue-feared
It's CYA. Society? We call it CYA.
But
cover your ass. That's why we do some of the testing we do is CYA, to cover our asses.
My problem is, going back to the Industrial Revolution thing she just said, is, you said, fuck you, the congressman. So if
I'll say it again. You want me to say it again?
No, if you're a corporation in the United States who's making hundreds of millions of dollars after being a person that provides a good that we all buy from them, and they decide to go overseas and make their stuff cheaper so they can make more money and fuck Americans over for their jobs and insurance, then screw them. If I knew who they were, I would never buy another product from them ever in my entire life. It makes no sense to me.
Corporations like General Electric, who paid zero in tax returns.
Right, I'm just saying.
Zero. And they do almost all their stuff overseas. And guess what? You're still going to buy General Electric shit.
Well, because I have to,
and hospitals are still going to get General Electric CAT scans and MRIs because they're the leading experts in manufacturing that stuff. There's some things.
There's no way to get out from
under. Yeah, exactly. There's some things that you cannot get out from under. Even though you want to.
And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that sometimes if there was a corporation that was saying, sorry, you're a bunch of fat bastards and we're not going to have our jobs here anymore because you guys can't take care of yourselves. To me, that's a shitty point of view.
They're not going to say it like that. They're not. I'm just saying.
Of course they're not.
They're not going to say it like that. They're just going to move.
Right.
Well, for financial reasons, because our board of directors.
People here. One of the biggest things was that they were going to move overseas because of healthcare was too expensive. So in other words,
it is a legitimate concern. If I'm having somebody mow my lawn and it costs $5 a week, well, now all of a sudden I have to pay for their insurance, which was, I don't know when corporations had to start paying for people's insurance. All right. Let's say now I have to pay $10 a week on top of the $5 a week that I was paying this guy to mow my lawn. Government comes in and says, Matt, you now have to pay that guy. You now have to have so much money in reserve because the insurance is like 5 times what you were paying before. And I realized when you started this, you were only paying that dude $5 a week to mow your lawn. But now, actually, the money that's coming out of your billfold is closer to $120, maybe $300. It's so fucking crazy. So when you own a business and you're looking at the dollars and the cents, it's so easy to say on paper, black and white, okay, I'm done. Let's cut this. Let's go overseas. I can deal with a 7-month layover. Let's get the company rolling. Let's get the factory rolling over in Japan or China or wherever. And we can do everything over the internet. It's global. The global economy.
Makes sense.
It does make sense on paper, but morally and ethically, it fucks people at home.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Sorry.
So one of the positive things that has happened, and I don't think I admit I don't have a lot of extra time to watch a lot of the news and hear about some of these things. But one of the things that the ACA has done is implemented something for hospitals it's supposed to be cost saving, but it's also to improve care. So it is value-based purchasing. It's actually already started. So in October 1st of last year, they implemented this policy. So CMS, which is the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, implemented value-based purchasing for hospitals. So anyone who gets funds from CMS is now part of this value-based purchasing. And it is kind of twofold. So what they did was say, okay, you're going to be held accountable for the quality of care that's provided at your hospital. Mm-hmm. That means your outcomes, your patient outcomes, your readmissions.
Is that realistic?
Absolutely.
It really is realistic.
Absolutely.
Everybody's
happening.
different. Everybody's different.
You're right, but it's happening. So there are certain things that should be never events in hospitals. There should be things that we're at the point where healthcare has checklists, we have protocols, and we know based on years of experience and research that this is the best way to handle someone on a ventilator with pneumonia. And this is the best way to treat someone with this. And these are the outcomes that should happen almost all the time. Mm-hmm. So what they said was, we're going to hold you accountable for your patient outcomes. So your readmissions. So if you have a readmission, we want to know why, and we may not pay you for it because it may be a mistake you made in your care.
Right. Let me ask you something real quick. I've never heard of that before, but it is eerily similar to someone saying, we will pay teachers for the outcome of those students. Correct. Remember when they were saying incentive to pay program?
Right.
And I know a few teachers, not a ton, a handful, maybe 2 handfuls, that were up in arms. They were freaking the fuck out because they're like, hey, listen, there's shit going on at kids' homes. We have no control over that. I mean, they come into school. Maybe they're not fed properly. Maybe they're not getting any hugs and hugs, care, kisses. Maybe they're not nurtured at home. Maybe there's no support at home. Maybe mom and dad are fighting. Maybe there's only mom. Maybe there's only dad. Maybe the kids live with grandma who's smoking crack.
Right.
How can we be held accountable for educating these kids? And my pay is based off that. It just sounds eerily similar because there's people come into the hospitals.
Train wrecks.
Total fucking train wrecks.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what they said was, we're going to say, so not only is what we're going to do is withhold 1% of your reimbursement. We're going to withhold it, and you're going to have to earn it back.
What?
So let's say
I don't understand reimbursement. So who's reimbursement?
The hospital's reimbursement. So from CMS.
Not the nurses, not the doctors.
No, it's the hospital's payment. So we're going to say we're going to hold 1%. So an institution where I work, that's over $1 million that we have to earn back based on our patient outcomes, and not only outcomes, but the patient experience. How does that patient rate their experience at our facility? So part of it is that it does allow, I mean, what person shouldn't be held responsible for the work and care that they do? I mean, I believe that I should be held responsible.
Well, you should take pride in it.
Pride, but I'm also held responsible. So each year up until 2017, the reduction will be 0.25% every fiscal year until 2017 when it hits 2%. So that we're talking millions of dollars that's being withheld that we now have to earn back. So what they're saying is that all these hospitals have to earn this money back. And if you earn it back and you outperform other hospitals, we're not only going to give you your 1% back, we're going to give you part of their money. So poor performers, so it's raising the bar for everyone. So everyone has to raise the bar for their outcomes and their patient experience. So that improves the care that's provided to all the consumers.
So it's kind of part of this. So it's kind of like the free market in hospitals. If you're going to make sure that you get the best service, the best care possible, and not only will you get reimbursed what you're supposed to do, you'll get more.
Right.
Let me. I'm going to go old school with you for a second. There's a term that is used rather frequently from where I'm from, and that's shit rolls downhill. So if something happens, some unforeseen thing, because we're all a fucking little mystery in this bag of meat that we carry around on our bones, and the hospital is penalized, okay, that is going to roll downhill. And so the administrators are going to not get funding, or they're going to be penalized, and they're going to have to earn that money back.
The hospital bottom line has to earn it back. So this is not
the hospital bottom line, but the bottom line of the hospital is what? Shareholders. Somebody's making money off of hospitals. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to get pissed because they're not making as much money as they were before.
Well, but they might change it though.
Okay.
So I'm not going to go to that hospital because they have had they get shitty experiences. They have nowhere else to go. So I'm going to go somewhere else.
Okay. And your healthcare provider says, this is what you can go, this is where you can go to. And this is what pisses me off, because you are limited by your healthcare insurance what hospitals you can go to. I'm limited by what chiropractors I can see. I'm limited by what dentists I can see. It's not free market. It's not. And if I'm told that I have to go to either hospital A or hospital B, well, fuck, what if I want hospital C? What if my only options are hospital A and B, and they both fucking suck, and they're both going to overcharge the shit out of me? Real story. All right. Just recently, I had the terrible advantage of sitting in a hospital room watching a loved one being taken care of. It was a very terrible situation. It was very sad. One of the things that I took away from that experience, because I knew that we were going to be talking about this, and Obamacare is such a hot ticket item right now. Every time the nurses came in, they were pulling something out of a plastic bag. Boom, brand new. Oh, let's try this. Boom, brand new. Let's try this. Boom, brand new. Whether it was a mask, whether it was a tube, whether it was a syringe, it didn't fucking matter what it was. Your oxygen levels are too low. Let's try this. It's coming out of a brand new fucking package. Hey, let's try an oxygen mask. I'm pretty sure that mask was on him just 2 days ago. Why are you getting a brand new one? This is the terrible thing. I'm in a situation where all I should be thinking about is my loved one in the bed. That's all I should be thinking about. And I should never have to even wonder, not even one iota, is he getting the best care possible? He was getting good care. But what I saw was horrendous waste. What I saw, because this stuff's flowing through my mind,
right?
Dollar signs.
Well, what this
just a ticket item going through the fucking roof. And I guarantee you what he's going to get charged for with that oxygen mask is going to be a lot more.
Let's ask the expert who's next to us.
Then it's going to be a lot more than what I would have bought it off of Amazon.
Okay.
So what all of this is supposed to do, and it's going to come to this, and it's already in a few things, where CMS, which is the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services. So Medicaid is children and pregnant women. Medicare is adults and disabled people, people with disabilities. Those are the people that are covered under that. And that's going to expand. That's expanding under the ACA. But what it does what it's moving towards is one of the payments is that someone comes in with diagnosis X, Y, and Z. So we're going to give you the hospital. They're going to say, we're only going to reimburse you $2,000 for X. You need to make sure your care is within that $2,000. So most everything will be bundled at some point. So I can go to my Omni cells where all my supplies are. I can take out whatever I want to. The patient's getting billed one thing and we're getting reimbursed one thing. Doesn't matter how many syringes I use. Doesn't matter how many masks I use. I, as an employee, need to be, fiscally responsible with our resources, but the patient's not going to see any of that. It's one bill, one charge. You came in with this. This is what we're paying. You guys better make it work. So that's why the hospitals are going to standard protocols, checklists. They're having patients that have navigators in the hospital to help them navigate smoothly through the services that they need to make sure that we are providing efficient quality care in a timely manner so that patients go in and out of the system smoothly and we don't have delays. We don't have patients spending extra days in the hospital that are unnecessary. But everything's bundled. Everything's going to be a bundled diagnosis and bundled charge. So it doesn't matter how many syringes, how many things they use. They're going to get billed one thing because you have diagnosis X.
And that's supposed to, because the hospital is going to be more efficient, working better, things are cheaper. It's supposed to make them be more responsible for their health care that they're providing. Right.
So let's say the hospital gets reimbursed $2,000 for that, but we only spent $1,700 to take care of that patient. That's kudos. I mean, we were efficient. So they're not going to have all of that, oh, I got charged, $300 for an aspirin.
Right.
Kind of thing.
I was just so taken back by the experience. I was mentally not my best. I was really sad what was going on. Obviously, it was more for my wife. I felt terrible for her and what she was going through. I felt terrible for her dad who was in the bed. But I was really surprised at when I talked to her later when we were having lunch. I said, "Did you notice how many brand new things were being brought out of packages?" I mean, I know I don't visit very often. I was just there the other day and they had pulled out a mask from packaging and they just did another one today. Do you ever think of that? And she said, I didn't notice any of that. None of it.
But she's a nurse. She's in it, kind of, right?
But I think that's my point. My point is we're so acclimatized to let's just instantly, let's do the best care we can right now. Let's do whatever we got to do. Let's do it right now. We've gotten into such a system of, I don't care if it's brand new. I don't care if
it sounds like that'll help.
It does sound like that. I mean, that's a positive for what Nicole is saying. Okay. That is a positive for what she's saying. I still have a hard time understanding how you're going to get charged one price for that group of care. Because if people are using the resources like I saw the other day, that's got to be paid for somehow. I mean, if you have 50 air masks, and somebody is negligent and they're using 10 of them when they could have just used one and then hung it up next to the guy, the hospital's got to pay for it somehow.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of me thinks they'll absorb the cost, and that person will be like, "Hey, listen, you can't use fucking 50 air masks. You better start doing things more efficiently. You're going to be in trouble for it." So it might making people be held accountable, and then hopefully that increases the efficiency. Is that how?
Exactly. So we have a whole department within our hospital that is purchasing and procurement, and they contract for these prices. So we change products all the time based on not only what's the best, but also the deal. They negotiate pricing like crazy. Mm-hmm. If they come in with I come in with a new product that I want on my unit, they're going to bat for me. I don't have to deal with the vendors. They're going to bargain and get the best price possible. So we're part of a purchasing group that allows hospitals to get the best pricing. Then we go out and compare that pricing to say, oh, are you really giving us the best pricing? Because we're going to go out and compare it to other hospitals like us and say, okay, you know what? We didn't get the best pricing. Bring it back to the table. Give me the best pricing.
And that's awesome. That's amazing. I wish we had something like that, an organization like that for the patients who are going in, because I have so many links up on my computer right now, guys. I'll have to have a whole page for the description. Mm-hmm. But there is an organization that works for the government that tries to oversee what hospitals are charging patients. Mm-hmm. And it's for Medicare or Medicaid. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because, hey, the government doesn't want to get screwed over. They don't want to be out of their money anymore than they have to be. So you have these people writing checks to hospitals for Medicaid or Medicare, and they have people that are they've written computer code so that they're going line by line through people's bills, and they're saying, hey, why are you charging this? Why are you charging that? And that's fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. I love it. Mm-hmm. That's great. But that's only for people on Medicaid or Medicare. And I'll try to figure out which one it is.
But it's not
CMS for fucking me.
CMS
it's not me.
It's one institute, one organization. So CMS is essentially both of those together. So CMS is central.
So you're saying something together. Like that is going to be institutionalized once Obamacare or Affordable Care Act is completely in swing?
That I'm not 100% sure.
Is there somebody going to bat for the people, the normal people that are paying for insurance?
So somebody who's not on Medicare or Medicaid, you're walking into the hospital, you're getting all that care, you're seeing all that waste. So it's you in that bed instead of your father-in-law, and you're not part of Medicaid or Medicare, and you're seeing all that stuff being ripped open and taken care of. And I think I'm understanding your point of view. So who's there to make sure that we have that kind of efficiency? Does that cover everybody by the hospital? Does everybody do that?
CMS, yes. So CMS essentially sets the trends, and then your Blue Cross, your Blue Shield, everyone else takes from there. So essentially CMS will say, here's what we're going to do. We're only going to pay you this much. Every other private health insurance will be like, oh, we're going to follow suit. They're going to give you $2,000. We're going to give you $2,000. So they're going to follow suit with that, and they kind of set the trend, and then all the other private insurance companies kind of follow suit with that.
So even if you're not on Medicare or Medicaid, you can still have the same kind of care, the same kind of efficiency, the same kind of thought for saving money for the patient.
Right.
Okay.
So part of it too.
All your problems are solved, Matt. You're set, buddy.
You know what? I would love to believe that. But I would.
Why do you have such a hard time believing what she's saying about the stats?
Because I'm not arguing with her stats, dude. I'm arguing with the idea. The idea is there are people that are fighting tooth and fucking nail. The people that fucking voted this shit in fought tooth and nail to not have to pay for it, to not be affected by it.
What do you mean? Oh, you mean the
congressmen? If congressmen don't want to pay for it, if they don't want to be affected by it, if there's certain states that say, hey, I'll sign it, or my congressman will vote for that as long as this state doesn't get affected by it, something is fucking amiss. There's a piece to the puzzle that you're not seeing, that I'm not seeing, that she's not seeing. If it's so fucking cherry and rosy and rainbow bright,
they're not going to pay for anything regardless of what's proposed. So they're always going to be exempt. I mean, I don't think there's anything that could be proposed that they're not going to be exempt from.
Well,
I really don't.
I think this probably one of the biggest travesties of our government.
Right. And I don't think that's going to be fixed by anyone's proposal for healthcare reform. And I think that, all the things that are trying to help this, the hospitals, I mean, I know a lot of the media attention is focused on individual insurance, which is very important. Sure. But there's also the whole other delivery care system part. So just reducing readmissions and hospitalizations for preventable conditions alone could save the Medicare program $12 billion a year. So if we're doing a better job and we're held accountable for being a better job, because you know what, you're not going to get paid. You need to do a great job. You need to provide great care. We're not going to pay you. That alone, by reducing all those emissions, can save us $12 billion a year.
I'm really glad that you brought that side of things to the discussion tonight, because I thought, and I shouldn't have, because I know you, and I should have expected better, but I didn't. I expected a different point of view from you, and because of the job that you hold, and I was totally ready. To be schooled on Obamacare, the policy, but I was not ready for you to talk about how it affects the hospitals and how the hospitals care for patients and how the cost of that care is going to be regulated. I was not prepared for that, because my whole counter argument was a piece in the New York Times by Stephen Brill. And he took 7, if you have not seen that New York Times article, I will have a link up for that. You can read it online, the whole thing. You'll be able to read the whole thing online, and it is extremely infuriating. But of course, that is with our current plan. All of this happened before Obamacare. Okay, so even if it's extremely frustrating for you, let's hope and pray that Obamacare will take care of some of this. The Affordable Care Act will take care of some of these things. But just as a few examples of what Stephen Brill was talking about, and his whole argument was, we need to look at the first problem, which is, why are we being charged so much at hospitals? Why is it that a patient who needs chemotherapy has to pay in advance? One of his examples, and you can read it in his article, $83,900 in advance before he is seen, before he is actually brought in from the waiting room. They have to get this advance. Why is that? A lot of us, and I'm sure nurses, doctors, everybody that works in the medical field, they went into this profession because they want to help people. And somewhere along the lines, it got co-opted. Just like the Tea Party got co-opted. And it turned into a money's game. And when I said this to my wife, who is a nurse, she goes, of course they have to make money. Of course it's a business. You just said that a person's health comes down to dollars and cents on whether or not you'll help them. Do you understand that? Do you understand that if my kids or our kids get fucked up, ran over, hurt, urinary tract infection, you're looking at you from that side, that profession. You just said that from that point of view, you're looking at them as a dollar and cent type of thing. You're not looking at them as a human being who's suffering, who needs health care. You're looking at them as somebody who is going to make your business more money.
But part of that too, part of this Affordable Care Act is you as a patient can walk out of there, and 6 weeks later when you get that Press Ganey or that whatever patient survey comes back to you, and you don't mark the top boxes on that for HCAHPS, which is part of the CMS, how they track quality of care. Okay. If you don't mark always, if the question says, was the nurse always, or was the nurse nice to you? And you mark, sometimes, ding, hospital ding. Would you recommend this hospital to your loved one? Sometimes, ding. That all, and how many people that do that because they're not providing patient-centered care, quality care, you walk out of there feeling crappy, like your experience was horrible. You get your survey back, you fill it out, that hospital then gets affected by that. So their HCAHPS scores, their Press Ganey scores, whatever survey they use for patient satisfaction is all included in that reimbursement. Well, hospitals are pushing for, they now have people in there called patient experience people that are director level that are telling people how to treat patients as they come in. Hospital-wide organizations are spending millions of dollars to up their customer service. So we need to have, a greeter. We need to have the nurse at the bedside need to be, attuned to everything. It's the communication. It's how you speak to the patient. It's everything.
How does this interrelate with nurses' unions? Has there been any type of blowback?
No, because most of the time the unions are focused on wages and benefits. Mm-hmm. So if it's not affecting the wages and benefits are negotiated by contract. So
right.
Those are not going to.
So is mine.
Right.
But if I'm asked, hey, you need to do this. Oh, and by the way, put a fucking smile on your face. Have a great day.
It's mandatory.
I'd be like, what the fuck? Dude, I didn't get hired on. I wasn't told when I got hired on that I need to have a smile on my face 24/7.
But don't you think if you're hired onto a position where you are going to be interacting with people on a regular basis in a caring situation in healthcare, like you said, you want to make sure that the best things are happening for you or your family. You're going to want to make sure you see that. I know that I would feel better if I walked in and I had appendicitis or I had a cold and somebody said, "Hey, how you doing? It's good to see you. What can I help you with today?" Instead of like, "Next, number 4, please."
Think about the airlines.
That second part, you just described almost every doctor I've seen.
Exactly.
Okay, there you go. Then that might correct it.
You can say, it's nurses, providers, it's anyone there. You're ranking them. And then by then, the hospital will have weekly, monthly scores. And if their scores are below the national average, their money's going to go to another hospital who's outperforming them in that area. They're not going to get that money back. They're not going to earn it back. And each year it's going to increase by 0.25%. They're going to get more and more withheld that they have to earn back. And if you don't perform, you're not in the top performers in the nation, someone else is getting your money.
How do you see this ending? I mean, do you actually see the ACA actually really coming to fruition and fulfilling those idealistic views? I mean, I loved everything that you said. Everything that you said tonight made sense to me, and it makes me want to go out and vote for ACA Obamacare. Okay? It does. It does. Because there's a lot of issues that I had before this was even institutionalized, before it was written in. But I have serious trust issues. Mm-hmm. Okay. My emotional bank account needs some deposits.
Oh, that's probably, I'm going to say that's probably the biggest part, because I've never disagreed with you with your passion about why you have a question with things. That's why I went back to the beginning about how was this was not explained well. You didn't get any deposits saying, "Listen, we're on your side. We're doing this for you. And this is how it's going to benefit you." First of all, it was just a political campaign to get reelected from Obama, and everybody else is against it. And then now it's like, "Oh, hey, I'm fulfilling my promises. Here you go," without any explanation. So there is no bank account set up for us.
Well, and the whole thing that got blown out of proportion that could save billions and billions of dollars.
Are you going to talk about death panels?
Absolutely,
I hope so.
Absolutely. The whole point of this was not throw grandma over the cliff in her wheelchair,
start from the beginning, really slowly.
It is Primal Scream.
This is what I did.
Passionate. You're really passionate about this one issue in particular.
I am.
Okay.
I am.
Start from the beginning. Death panels. That's what it was coined. That phrase was coined by Sarah Palin.
Right. And it was actually had to be removed from the actual act that was passed because they missed the whole boat on why. What it was there was reimbursements in there for providers to have end-of-life discussions with patients. It was
shouldn't that have been happening anyway?
Explain an end-of-life conversation.
An end-of-life conversation would be that. Let me pull up a few things here while I'm talking. I actually wrote a legislative testimony on this for a class.
Now you're just trying to impress.
She's showing. I'm already
no,
impressed.
Because I have a lot of stats in it, so I'm pulling it up here. So end-of-life just means you're having a discussion about making sure that hospice and palliative care are part of an end-of-life discussion. So palliative care means that you are taking care of pain, you're managing pain on an outpatient basis or an inpatient basis, and you're providing hospice, meaning end-of-life care. And I'm not going to quote this correctly because I can't pull it up fast enough. The majority of a patient's entire healthcare costs are almost entirely in the last part of their year, the last year of their life, are almost all spent on the last year of their life. So
their whole entire life, most of it comes when?
Okay, so total Medicare spending in 2012, so this is just general Medicare spending, was $560 billion.
Okay.
25% of that, so $140 billion, was spent in the last 6 to 12 months of someone's life. So we have this huge area where we can affect cost. So that's where they said, "Oh, so you're going to withhold life, support to my grandmother. You're going to just, wheel her off the cliff and not, and not provide care." And I'm not being very articulate with this right now.
That's what some politicians were saying, because they were trying to fear tactics, which I like to call terrorism.
Right. So what end-of-life care means is that you're having a conversation with the family that outlines exactly what's going to happen. So right now in Iowa, you can get something called an I-post, which is filled out by your provider. Let's say you have a terminal illness or a child with a terminal illness, and the child needs to go into the hospital for a treatment of some sort. but you don't want life. You know this child has a terminal illness. You don't want heroic measures done. You fill this out ahead of time. You can actually hand it to your paramedic, and they can read this and say, okay, they won't intubate. This is exactly outlined of what we want with the care. Now, you can on the fly change that, but this allows them the ability to not do all of these heroic measures. We don't want chest compressions. We don't want all of this stuff done. And these are conversations that happen with trained professionals.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why did we take the Dr. Kevorkian thing off the table as an option? I mean, that's a government
that
thing.
was never part of the
I know it was.
Act, right?
No. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase this. I know it was never an option with Obamacare. I don't want to confuse anybody by thinking that Dr. Kevorkian was an option here. What I'm saying is what you were just talking about was a child with terminal illness. A patient of a certain age has terminal illness, or they're going downhill quickly. Why isn't it an option to be at home and be administered a medicine that takes them out of their pain? They get to say goodbye to their loved ones when they want to, and you're not waiting for this life form to be emaciated and to wither away to a husk in a hospital bed where there's, you know what, there really could not be more than 3 or 4 people in my father-in-law's room. And I guarantee you, he had a lot more relatives than that would love to be with him. So I guess my frustration is we took a very humane thing and we said, nope, that's illegal.
Right.
We will not let somebody take their own life. We will not let them take it in a painless, honorable way.
It's religion. And that's a whole other discussion.
Right. But palliative care and hospice can get you to that point where you're not having heroic measures done and you can die peacefully with pain control. It's not necessarily the overdose that's going to end your life sooner, but it's the care that can get you there. So there's a study that says that 80% of Americans wish to die at home. So up to 80% of Americans say, yes, if you had an option, where do you want to die? I want to die at my house. Only 20% do, with 50 to 60% of Americans dying in a hospital and another 25 to 35% dying in a nursing home. But 80% of us want to die at home. So we have this huge gap in education there. Part of it is medical education. We don't have providers that are comfortable having that conversation or trained to have that conversation in palliative care and hospice. So they just avoid it. They don't want to talk about it. Americans in general, I have this conversation all the time with people, don't want to talk about death and dying. But they don't want to suffer, and they don't want to go before their time. And so we have this conundrum that we can't prolong life because, it's going to happen at some point. And so we have to be able to do it in a way that is not spending billions of dollars for heroic measures that people don't want.
Right. Oh, yeah. We actually had to hear from the doctor, we've given you everything we have. We've given you everything we have. There's nothing left. Nothing.
And that to me would say dollar signs as much as anything else. So they've done everything in their power to make sure it's taken care of.
I'm just saying, I'm at that point I wasn't really thinking about dollar signs. Maybe that's the epitome of dollar signs.
Go ahead and switch it up on me. Go ahead.
But at that point I was actually thinking it takes somebody. We've all disillusioned ourselves with the idea that we're never going to die. We've all disillusioned ourselves. It's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to die of cancer. I'm not going to die of lung cancer. I'm not a smoker. I'm not going to die of this or die of that. Everyone dies. Everyone does. And we've gotten to a point to where I need a trained medical professional and however many other doctors to follow him into the room and say, I'm a specialist in this and I'm a specialist in that. And here's another specialist right behind me and the 5th or 6th specialist behind him. We've all agreed that we've done everything. And every single thing. And your quality of life has sucked. It has sucked for the last 8 years. You have not had quality of life. We've basically put you on a movable bed so that you can interact with your loved ones in a really sad way.
That's why I think what she's saying is impacting me even more now after hearing you say that. My thought is that if you have a doctor sitting there with his family saying, these are your options, we can, they're probably not going to say, we're going to spend a $250,000 doing these things for you, but we're going to save you a tremendous amount of money if we don't do this stuff. That's kind of between the lines, so to speak. I think that's what would be incredible about that. If I had somebody sit down with me and say, listen, you've been fighting hard for your son's life, and we've done everything we can to this point. There's some extreme measures we can now do that would do this, this, and this. And he or she may live to be a couple more months older. Is this what you want to do? Well, and I can say, well, what kind of stress would they be under? What would they have to go through? What would their quality of life be? Probably not that great, but you can sit with them and hold their hand for 4 months while they go through all these tests and things like that. That would give me the option to say, you know what? I don't want my kid to go through that. I know on the backside, which I wouldn't even be thinking of, would be the money that's being saved for me. But it would be nice to have somebody have that conversation, because don't they say that people don't really have a grasp or begin to grieve when somebody has died until they've had a doctor say to them to their face, your wife is dead, or your father has died. I'm really sorry. We did everything we could. They're gone. And then you get a chance to have the reaction that you need to have as a human being, instead of elongating. You know what I mean? It just sounds like to me, it makes so much sense. It's like such a no brainer. And it pisses me off so badly that it was turned into an idea like death panels. And then the whole idea was just squashed. This is why it bothers me, because the whole idea was just like given up on because one person made a comment about it in a way that they didn't agree with.
Because a political bastard.
Right.
I could say whore, but then people would say, oh, you're calling her a whore? No, a bastard, an asshole, a son of a bitch, turned something that should have been humane and turned it into something horrible and nasty. It's something that you would think, let's not even talk about this. And it got removed. All because of politics, all because somebody wanted some votes somewhere.
Well, it goes back to the idea that they don't want government in healthcare. Right. But regulation, we just talked about the USDA and regulations, how it's good if they're helping to make sure we have certain things not in our food. It'd be the same thing. If we had the government involved in the idea of, we're going to make sure that your doctor has this kind of knowledge, this kind of, communication, so that he can give you the right information and help your family in the long run. That's a good thing to have government involved.
This is a huge study that was done, and this is just to show how inadequate the training is for medical professions. This was done at Michigan State, and they surveyed the doctors there at the hospital, and they said 65% said they had received inadequate education in controlling symptoms associated with cancer. So palliative care and hospice, palliative care is all of the things that we do to help mitigate some of the pain and suffering that happens with certain diseases, or diseases in general. It's not limited to one type of disease. And then they had received, and 81% felt they had inadequate training in discussing a poor prognosis with a patient and their families. So we assume that all of our medical professionals, doctors, have gotten training to know how to talk to us. They don't. Almost 80%. It doesn't. I mean, that's significantly high. Say, I don't have the proper training to sit down and talk to you and your family about a poor prognosis. So I'm just going to push every test because I'm supposed to be able to heal someone. And I want to make sure that I'm just going to push all these tests. So therefore, what does that do? When these things aren't necessary, it's going to increase our costs. Instead of saying, this is what's going on. These are your options. Here's the things that we can do. This is plan A. This is plan B. This is plan C. Think about each one of them. We can do either of these. This is what's going to happen if we go down this road. This is what could happen if we go down this road.
Right.
They're inadequately trained for it. There's a bill right now for it's HR 1339. So if you go to GovTrack.
GovTrack.com.
Mm-hmm. So this is, and of course, if you look at these, it's so sad because they have like 1% chance of passing in the committees and stuff. So it'll say what the percentage is or what the rating is of whether or not they're going to pass. This is like 1%.
So it's going to really anger me.
Exactly. It's frustrating. So there's a couple of these on there that could, change. That was all. They're trying to put them in as bills now because they got removed from the Affordable Care Act. So they're trying to go say, okay, we were going to try to reimburse, hospitals and providers for having these conversations because we know it saves us millions and billions of dollars in healthcare if patients are allowed to make choices regarding their end-of-life care. We know it happens. I mean, there's studies that show that people that have this have less intensive care admissions, less, readmissions to the hospital. Their satisfaction at the end of their life and their family satisfaction of how that person left and died is greater if they've had these conversations. So they tried to put these through as bills, and we'll see what happens. But the chances of them passing are extremely small.
I think a lot of this issue in particular goes back to the idea around, and I don't know if this is worldwide, but I'm just going to stick with Americans because that's what I think I know best, being one. And that would be that why are we so afraid of death? I've had the conversation with
you and I have talked about this. Death has been with us for thousands of years.
And my children know that, like, what do you mean you're going to die? And I'm like, eventually. Well, you are too. It's just what happens. I mean, that's just a normal thing. We can sit back and we can worry about when that's going to happen and not live our lives, or we could just know it's inevitable and we can move on with our lives. And I mean, I've had that conversation probably 2 or 3 times with my kids at different times, saying, I will not be here at some point, and either will you. And that's okay. That's the way things work. And I think people want to, I don't know whether they don't want to recognize it in themselves that they worry about that or fear that, or they don't want to put fear into their kids. Because to me, being open and honest about the cycle of how the world works is just a good conversation to have because it's real.
There's a great study, and this kind of shows where people are at in a hospital setting when they see certain types of patients. So this is a study out of McGill University, and this is 350 students, law and medical students, and then it's 86 residents, pediatric and OB, and then 96 attending physicians, which are your faculty. So those are your trainers. They said, okay, here's you're on service. This is who's walking in the door. Who are you going to intubate first? Who are you going to save first? And these are, and they
isn't it like a triage situation?
Right. It's a triage situation. And they gave them the percentage of survival rate behind each person. So this is a hypothetical test that they gave them.
Okay.
They gave them this list of patients and then the percentage of survival rate behind it. So you have a 24-week premature infant, 50% survival. Term infant with a malformation, 50% survival. 2-month-old with meningitis, 50%. 7-year-old with multiple disabilities, 50%. 14-year-old with CNS.
What's CNS?
Central nervous system, leukemia. So they have 5% chance. 35-year-old brain cancer, 5%. 50-year-old motor vehicle accident, 50%. An 80-year-old with dementia and stroke, 50%. Who do you think got intubated first?
The one with the 7%. I want to say the 5%, 7%.
Yeah, just to be an asshole. I'm going to say the one that did not have the 50%. There's two pieces.
Exactly.
There's 2 examples.
This is a bell curve. So the people in the middle with the 5%. So they looked at the life. They thought the life of a 7-year-old, a 14-year-old, and the 35-year-old with brain cancer with a 5% survival rate. So the really young and the really old, we're going to wait on them. They focused on the people that are within that term, middle-aged range. I think it's fascinating. I think it's just a great example of looking at how they viewed that. So they even have the survival rates, and they're still going to intubate the 35-year-old.
Why do you think that is? What do you think what was the reasoning behind that? Test. Hypotheticals without any of that craziness, and they still picked the ones with the less amount. That's why I'm wondering, what was it? Because nobody was running in screaming. It was just like, here's the care. What would you do?
Let's say the 35-year-old had a whole plan, though, and she didn't want to be resuscitated or intubated. So she would, and she's one of the top ones to get intubated. So their example right there of why we need to have these conversations, because she's going to be one of the first ones intubated. We're going to go to heroic measures to save someone who has a terminal brain cancer and has a 5% chance of living, who runs, comes in the door. Instead of having, this could be on her chart that says, I have a do not resuscitate on here. This is what I want. These are my wishes. Do you concur? The family member, can you verbalize that this is still what you want? Yes. I'm with it enough. I can verbalize it. You've had the discussion with your family members. They can verbalize it.
So it kind of makes our argument moot. That's more along the death panel idea, saying if that person had those things already talked to about and in place.
What is implemented now, or what has been implemented since the Terry Schiavo fucking fiasco, is that would never happen again. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, it can still happen. It's
if she has things in place.
These conversations have to happen. There has to be. No, they can always change too. That's the thing. It's not something set in stone. So a family member who has the next, decision making can say, you know what, we talked about it, but right now I want you to do this, and it's not going to be set in stone. So there's not going to be withholding of care if someone changes their mind.
I'm thinking of when I was going through EMTB training, you could have a DNR slip, a do not resuscitate tag or bracelet or a piece of paper in your wallet, and you would basically have to search that person. You'd have to search all of their belongings, ideally, if you're going to follow it. I'm just giving an example of when we were in the EMTB thing. Immediately, people give care. That's what people do. Mm-hmm. They just immediately give care because they don't want to see somebody in pain. They don't want to see somebody die. They don't want to be sued.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
There's a lot of things. You do not do a body search on somebody.
Right. No, but most people who are in the situation of having a DNR, a bracelet, is going to be something a medical thing that's on their person. It's like they're sick, they've been sick, or something's happened over the years that they are people you should be aware. Because part of EMTB, because I went through it too. We don't do anything without each other.
Right.
Is you look for those you look at those medical bracelets. You don't. I mean, you're right. If nobody has a piece of paper on them, they're going to be resuscitated. But if they have a bracelet on that says no, a DNR, they won't be. Period.
That's what. So I have a iPost. If you go to Iowa and then iPost, it's the palliative care life sustaining treatment order. Essentially, this is the form. This is Iowa's form right here, and essentially says check. CPR. Attempt, do not attempt. And this will be a bright yellow form that you print off, and you literally have it with them. So if it's a cancer patient, but they need to go in the hospital for whatever reason, this is right there, and the paramedics can see it right there. So it's with the person. It's the family members have it. It's right there. And then you just go through. I want comfort measures. I want limited interventions. I don't want aggressive airways. I don't want aggressive mechanical ventilation. Or I want full treatment. Transfer to the hospital, includes critical care, everything. And then there's artificial nutrition, and then all the decision-making goes to who? Power of attorney goes to the patient. Everything is here. It's signed. It's talked about. And then this can also be done. What the University of Iowa has also helped implement this for children who are terminally ill. So parents don't have to sit there and watch their children go through all of this stuff. And they've had the conversations with trained professionals that say this is, then they can also say, you know what? I'm signing this, but this is not set in stone either.
There's two things. I like the idea that people are going to have conversations, or they could have conversations, and there's an assumption in me that thinks that because doctors are given that oath that they take, that they are
the Hippocratic oath,
that they are going to be taking care of somebody. But if they really know that this person is done, then if doctors who I would say deal in death as much as they do life at this point, when they're doing things, unless they're just doing they're even if you were delivering babies, which is life, there's going to be issues and complications, so you are dealing with death as well. How come conversations about death aren't as common? That kind of bothers me, that they're not more realistic about it. Secondly, is my grandfather had a DNR, took too much of his potassium pills. So I think it stopped his heart or something happened. The DNR was up in the office at the old folks home. And so they came in, resuscitated him. He woke up, and my brother and his wife, my brother's wife is a nurse. And he said, "Why is this in my throat?" Like, he knew right away when he woke up, he should not be alive. Why was this done to me? She couldn't get a nurse. So because she knew what she was doing, cut the tube out, withdrew the intubation that he had. And I think it was a handful of days left that he was still around, but he was extremely upset because he was a pretty realistic guy that he was done. He had been on the world, on the earth long enough that he was like, so I think you can still think, I was kind of backing up what you said. You can still not have the paperwork on hand and still get things taken care of. But why do you have Nicole, an idea about why, a lot of doctors, I guess I know some doctors, and they also like pretty realistic people and down to earth people. I wonder if it's certain professions or certain parts of being a doctor.
Sure. I think it's an ego thing. To be a physician, to do the things that they do, to go through the training, there's a certain ego thing. I can save this patient. I'm a good doctor. I know what I'm doing.
This is a puzzle. This is my take, and I'm going to fix it.
And I'm going to solve it.
Solve this fucking
Instead
puzzle.
of saying, what is the best for my patient? What is the best for this family? No, I can do this. I think they're just so used to solving the problem.
Wow.
Taking care of the patient.
Never thought of it that way.
It's a huge ego thing. You have,
I love Sudoku.
You have surgeons who are like, I can fix anything. Maybe it's not meant to be fixed. Maybe it's just not meant to be fixed.
No, that's a really good point, because I never ever thought about that. Because my first thought was that if you have a person in front of you who you've done almost everything you can, and you're pretty sure as a thoughtful, well-educated person that you're about done, with all the things you can do for this person, you would think you'd have the wherewithal to say, you know what, we're almost at the end because we just can't keep doing it.
The sad part is that I think I don't know if it's as Americans, we can't deal with death. When my father-in-law got to a certain point, the doctor said, these are your options, and they may increase the quality of life, but they may not. But these are your options. And at that point, do you get realistic? Do you get harsh? Do you just serve up that tough love and say, no, those aren't options. I don't think you understand this. He's at a point where anything that you give to him, whether it's surgery, whether it's an implant, whether it's a mechanical device, he's going to have to haul that shit around with him. And he's going to be an entity that is entertaining his loved ones until he just physically can't do it anymore. So at what point do we as Americans, or do we as human beings, just say, no, you're 85, you're 80, you're 75, whatever. This is your medical. This is if I were to give you a stress test right now, you'd fucking fail. You'd fail so miserably. This is your option. You don't have an option. I'm not going to give you this care. There are things that I could do. There are advancements in technology. There are medical wonders out there that may give you 5 months, 6 months, but I'm not going to do it. I mean, when are we as human beings going to say, you know what, you're right?
I think.
When are we going to deal with it? When are we going to say, it's a tough fucking thing, dude. I have a loved one dealing with it right now.
Right. And
I feel like an asshole saying that, but at what point are we all going to say, we all are going to die?
Why
right.
we
all want...
My mom died, 10 years ago. And she was at the point where she was done. She was done. She's like, this body has had it. I'm done. I'm ready to go. But she had cancer doctors, oncologists, who couldn't say the word to her, who couldn't say, they said, we can't surgically do anything for you anymore. But they couldn't have the conversation with. This is, they deal with this all the time. They deal with cancer patients all the time. But they failed to sit down and have a conversation with me and her and the rest of the family and say, we can't do anything else. Because it goes back to their training. They're inadequately trained to deal with it. They can surgically go in and remove the cancer, but if they can't, how are they trained to deal with that whole other aspect of it? They're not. So we have this huge lack of education and training that we need to provide. And there's this, like I said, the bill provides this bill provides education for universities in numerous settings to give the education to provide faculty that are trained in palliative care and hospice so that we can have those conversations.
It makes you think that they actually have to be told, you have to set your ego aside. I mean, you may actually have to say that.
I can't do anything else for you.
It makes total sense that these guys, because they are badasses in what they do, don't want to give up. I mean, the part of me is extremely admirable in my mind, but they might have to say, oh, wait a second. I got to take a deep breath, set my ego aside and say, man, I've done everything I can. I'm so sorry that I can't. I feel like I can accomplish anything, and I'm done. I'm at the end of my ability.
Yeah, and you may have families that say, you know what, I'm going to go get a second opinion. And it just goes to show you that there are, they could order the hospice care, but they overlooked the whole point of having that conversation with the family. So they overlooked it altogether.
Yeah. It's so complex. This issue is so complex because you have in one corner, there's so many corners, but in one corner, you have this idea that, you know what? I'm never going to give up. I'm going to find that fucking cure. I'm going to do all my research that I can. And, you see it in the movie.
I'm going to be the miracle.
I'm going to be the miracle. I'm going to make this miracle happen. You see it in the movies and you all fucking root for that fucking miracle. Come on, wake up. Anyway, you have that corner that you really root for. But then you have the logical black and white dollars and cents fucking accountant brain. And you're like, hey, at some point, I don't want you to do that because not only are you affecting them, okay, because let's not fool ourselves. That person is going to die eventually, and all of these amazing fucking technology, experiments and lab results and all this shit that we're doing at the hospitals, that bill's going to go somewhere, and it's going to affect your family. Right. It's going to affect your kids. It's going to affect your wife. In front of me, I'll put the link on it. It's a medical bankruptcy in the United States in 2007, the result of a national study. In 2001, 46.2% of all bankruptcies had to do with medical. It all came from medical. 46.2% of all bankruptcies came from medical bills.
Wow. I had to file bankruptcy when I was 23 because I had my appendix out when I was 18 and I had no insurance and I had no way to pay for it. I had a part-time job at like a video store or something. But I couldn't pay for it. So I think it was $18,000 for the whole procedure. The morphine was great though, by the way, quite the experience, but I couldn't pay for it and eventually caught up with me, garnered my wages. I had to file bankruptcy.
This was in 2007, so it's 5 years old. But as of 2007, 62.1% of all bankruptcies are due to medical bills.
So can ACA help with that?
So ACA is going to expand, like just for Iowa, if you look at the Iowa stats, 80 to 100,000 people, because they lowered the poverty level for who can qualify, will then have coverage under those. And then, so the coverage will expand, millions of people nationwide that will now have coverage under that. In the first couple of years, it will cost us more, but it will balance out because they're going to get preventative care. So when we do preventative care, we're going to increase hospital costs, ICU costs, ER costs. It's going to be more affordable care, but it'll cost us up front initially. But the care is going to be better and it'll be affordable and it'll be preventative versus treating the problem all the time. We're chasing our tail. We're treating chronic medical conditions by allowing them to get so bad where people have to have ER care at that point where they're train wrecks instead of, keeping the train on the track.
But true preventative care, wouldn't you agree? True preventative care would say we're going to start with food.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to start, even with this healthcare, even with the insurance that you may get or that you're going to have to get, even with that, you can still go bankrupt.
Right.
You can still be completely fucked, lose your house, be living in tent cities under a bridge.
One of the things with the Affordable Care Act is the formation.
That's not an exaggeration.
Is the formation of affordable care organizations. So they're going to say you're going to create an organization which could be a couple facilities managing together, and you're going to be responsible for the 500,000 people in this area. And you need to provide care to this group of people, and it needs to be multidisciplinary. It needs to be holistic. You need to have psychiatric, you need to have nutrition, you need to have general care, you need to have specialists, you need to have orthopedics, you need to have all of those things available. So a person walks in the door, it's a one-stop shop. They can stay within that system, get all the care that they need. If you look at, just like as physicians are not trained to talk about end of life, they're not trained to talk about nutrition either. They're horribly prepared to talk about proper nutrition and weight management.
But they are really good at selling drugs.
Exactly. So we have providers that are getting special training so that they can talk and refer and hire nutritionists and have them on staff and do nutritional consults so that patients can get that information that they need. Some of them don't want to hear it, but some of them have to have that conversation from a healthcare provider that says, your weight is dangerous. This is killing you. This is what's going to happen. These are your options. And that has to be said. And a lot of them are very uncomfortable doing that because they don't want to hurt people's feelings. They don't want to be the bad guy. But those conversations have to happen.
A part of me thinks that I won't, even though I feel like I'm doing better eating wise and health wise. And I think I'm probably better than the average American. I think we both are because we talk about juicing and nutrition a lot.
Right.
I still think that I
love my blend tech.
It's going to take a doctor to say to me, sir, you have diabetes, or you have this, or you have this, and then
when you get to the brink,
and then I'll be like, oh fuck, okay, all right, I'll make all the changes I need. I'll do little teeny increments, and I'll fall back, and I'll step forward, and fall back, and step forward. I have a 2-pound box of See's candy that I can't wait to eat. That's at home from California. It'll go down eventually. I'm not going to stop doing it. I'll still blend. I'll still have good things to eat, but I'm still going to eat horrible once in a while. But I'm not going to change drastically until somebody says you're at the end.
You know what? Some people would say that this Obamacare Affordable Care Act, that this is the reaction of we are at that brink, because we don't really make true change in any society until you're at that brink of fucking total collapse of, oh God, shit, the change that we have to make is going to be expensive. It's going to be painful, but we got to do it. They don't make that decision until you're at the brink. Now, some people will say that is why we're doing this. And then there's other people who are so jaded and so untrusting of the government, of our politicians. Why would we be trustful?
Exactly.
Why would we be? The head of the NSA says, no, we're not taking data on all you people. We're not spying on everybody. Oh, I misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah.
You can go on and on with examples of how politicians have lied and misled people. Okay. So it's easy to see from both sides. I'm not going to point fingers and say you're a fucking dumbass because you think this is a conspiracy theory to ruin the middle class completely because you look at it from a certain point of view.
Sure.
And it's going to affect a lot of people, sometimes adversely. And it's easy for me to look at it from Nicole's point of view because what she said was articulate. What she said was she was backing it up. And who it was coming from.
As a healthcare provider.
She's fucking good at her job.
Right.
And she's smart. And she's living in that setting. I don't ask, what is it? I don't ask a grain farmer what's going on in a cow's ass. What was that Tommy Boy? What's that Tommy Boy joke?
You don't stick your hand up a bull's ass to find out something.
God damn it.
I'll Google it.
I'm gonna have to put maybe I'll have to find the YouTube clip. But hey, listen, I really enjoyed, this is a very complex issue and you cannot be a passenger.
I have one. I have a caveat.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'll come back to my thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a caveat. Do you think that some of the things you talked about with ACA, when it comes to like price controls on medication or, control on medical equipment and waste, some of those things, and the profit, some hospitals are for-profit hospitals and some are non-profit hospitals. How will this?
But don't be confused because non-profit hospitals are making a shit ton of money.
No, that's what I'm saying. They have to make money. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So do you think, will those controls you talked about address those issues as well? When it comes to cost control and and the cost of prescriptions and meds and things like that?
That's all. The medications and things like that, price-wise, is contract and negotiations by the hospital. So how well are they contracting and negotiating? But the changes will come by how is it reimbursed? That's going to be the kicker. So how are Medicare, Medicaid, CMS, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, they're going to say, fine, use that medication. If you're going to use that medication that's, $5,000 and you're going to, instead of using the generic, which is $2,000, you know what? They're both, the results are the same. So that company is going to have to lower their price to be competitive because there's going to be a bundled price for all of that. So in a sense, that will somewhat affect part of that. Obviously, pharmaceuticals are a huge industry. And,
sure. Yeah.
So, but part of that will be some of that control that, and you're being withheld millions of dollars. These hospitals are being withheld millions of dollars. So their incentive to perform and to have happy, satisfied customers with great outcomes is huge because they don't want to not earn that back. They don't want to not have.
So the free market really could. The free market will affect that. I mean, because if you want to earn your money back,
right,
in the free market, you're going to make sure things are
right. So there may be hospitals that fail. They are poor performers. Their customers are unsatisfied. They can't provide the care. They don't have the outcomes that other hospitals do. They could go under, and that's just kind of a
you know what startles me about that statement? Not that they couldn't, but should they? When I said it once, I've said it I'll say it 1,000 times. If the banks are too big to fucking fail, hospitals should be too big to fucking fail. Your health should be too big to fail. People, humanity should be too big to fucking fail. You shouldn't have to worry about money or taking out a loan for your health. You also shouldn't be a dumbass and eat nothing but fast fucking food for 30 years and not think that you're not going to pay for it somehow.
I mean, there's a extremely irresponsible video that went through Facebook that was a man who's not even I can't remember what he is, but he has nothing to do with healthcare. And he made some really irresponsible comments about that obesity does not play a role in any part of our society and the impact on healthcare.
I would totally agree.
So you look from
kidding.
Was suggesting what?
Absolutely it was irresponsible that someone would even repost that without even. Why? I mean, if you go to the CDC and look at the guidelines or look at the impact that obesity has had on, it impacts every single organ in your body. Almost every organ in your body has an impact from obesity. Your healing, your ability to, every single function in your body is impacted by obesity. So it was completely irresponsible. And that went through how many cycles of everyone's Facebook page. So, free reign, just go ahead. It doesn't matter what your BMI is. It doesn't matter. It's huge. Your surgery costs, your risk for surgery, every single thing we do in the hospital is affected by a BMI.
And that's so ridiculous. It's just as at one point being a fat bastard, you're
still a fat bastard.
Okay. I'm still working on it. So I take
baby steps.
I take 2 weeks off and I eat super clean and I feel good and I juice and I blend and I eat good solid clean proteins and I eat salads. I don't eat a lot of processed foods or a lot of sugar and shit like that. You feel amazing.
Sure.
And you stop snoring. There's so many things.
The sex is better. Penis size has.
Oh, I wish that was true. Right away when you eat clean for 5 days, how much better you feel. You feel more cognitively aware. So many things affect it that even you don't have to watch that video even to realize that it's just bullshit. You eat the right way, you feel better. Your body can function better. Like she said, it can heal. You can heal yourself. I mean, your body is built to take care of all the shit that happens.
I don't think she said you can heal yourself, but you are correct. Your body can heal itself.
Your body's ability to heal is what she said.
And if you have health issues, or if you're not even at the point where you have health issues, I don't have health issues, but I still try. I fuck up terribly. I eat terribly, but I also try to inject some blends, dark leafy greens, fruits, vegetables. If it wasn't for my blender, I wouldn't get any of it.
Yeah. Hey, who's that guy that you like? Yo Elliott. What's the guy's?
It's Elliott Hulse.
Elliott Hulse.
YouTube channel.
Matt turned me on to it quite a while ago. And he fields questions quite a bit. He's a pretty big weightlifter dude, but he used to be a really kind of obese fella. And now he's just shredded because he's so focused on his health and what he's taking into his body. But he's taking some questions on a guy saying like, "Hey, I'm so much weight. I'm over this much weight. What can I do to be like you? Or what can I do to lose weight and do these things?" And he's really practical, straightforward. First of all, he's like saying, "Listen, it's going to take you 1 to 2 years. It's not like this snap overnight kind of, pop a pill and it's going to solve all your problems. It's going to be a long process." And the first thing you start realizing is that you need to start thinking as a thin person. And in doing so, realize that you're going to fall off the wagon and you're going to fucking binge and eat a whole entire box of donuts with a gallon of ice cream with a bunch of, what's that hard shell crushed on there? It's
magic shell.
It's going to happen. So realize you're going to make mistakes. Sure. But if you're going to start changing the way you think, you have to start thinking in a new way, not only taking in the right things.
You know what? There's so many things that I want to talk about because, again, this issue is extremely complex.
We may have to have Nicole back.
We might have to have her back because
she's pretty good looking, so it might be okay.
Don't be a sexist pig.
All right.
This whole time, I've really tried to not visualize you in your underwear. I failed. I'm just trying to stay professional. But some of the things that you need to think about, you can't be a passenger in this ride of life.
That's
you cannot
right.
be a fucking passenger. You have to be active. You have to ask questions.
Participant.
I don't have all the answers. Nicole doesn't have all the answers. Todd doesn't have.
Oh yeah.
Well, Todd has quite a few answers, but he doesn't have all the answers. You need to ask questions. You need to find somebody who can be an advocate for you, and you also can't be a lazy fat bastard. You have to go to the gym. You have to work out. I don't care how you work out.
Go outside and walk.
Get your heart rate up. Walk, jog, CrossFit, work out on weights. I don't care what you do. Just do it. You have to do it. You have to say yoga. I'm not saying yoga because
I wish I was more flexible.
Just the idea of my wife doing yoga turns me on. I'm not saying it because of that, but yoga, Tai Chi, things like this, all of those things. It's not like some tree huggery, stupid, illusory.
I have no idea. Sorry, buddy.
Is that a word?
Illusionary. It gets you out of your head for a while.
You just have to try some shit. You can't just sit on the couch and watch NYPD Blues Is that still on TV?
So Nicole, what do you do for fitness?
What are you doing?
I'm a CrossFitter.
Oh, she's a CrossFitter.
She's a CrossFitter.
Hey, let me ask you this.
Does she own Body Armor?
Do you eat like shit or do you eat well?
That's a day-to-day thing I struggle with.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge. Absolutely. I love food. I love sweets, but it's an absolute day-to-day challenge.
For everybody at home who's listening to this, if you're in your car, if you're on your iPad, whatever, she's an 8.
What's your
she's
vice?
A fucking 8. I'm not going to say she's a 10.
She's a 9. She's not an 8. That's a horrible thing to say.
Fuck you, Todd.
So,
she's an 8.
What's your
really good? It's really good.
What's your vice? What's your go-to stress food? Banana,
carbs, chips,
bread,
chips,
rolls.
Salsa.
What's your favorite candy?
Cotton
candy.
Ooh, just pure shredded sugar.
Shredded sugar.
It's not even in a. It's not even in a runt or a nerd.
You just fell out of my fantasy.
Nerd.
Zone.
I do like nerds as well.
I don't know. Her dress in cotton candy would be pretty awesome.
All right. I'm not gonna sexually harass all of our guests. Hey,
she is our first woman on the podcast.
She is our first, and she will not be our last.
But it is the Primal Scream, so we are a tad primal. But she knew that coming in.
That's true. God, there's so many things I wanted to talk about in this podcast too. For instance, a lot of people have questions. Why didn't we just say, instead of making something so fucking complex, why couldn't Barack Obama said, okay, fine, everybody has Medicare. Because by law, Medicare's payments approximate a hospital's cost of providing a service, including overhead, equipment, and salaries. Why couldn't we have done something as simple as that and said everybody has Medicare? Done. It's not Obama's law. We're just giving everybody that same thing. Or why didn't they just come out and say everybody has the same insurance as congressmen?
Oh, it'd be great is to have Nicole back on and have Rock on, because Rock's like, it's the federal government for every answer. I'm just kidding. I'm just giving him a hard time. But he tends to fall that hashtag federal government, hashtag I hate them. He might be good to have a discussion from a side that that you and even you and I aren't very familiar with, in the idea of government getting out of healthcare, and that the private sector and free market totally ruling healthcare, and how that would lower prices and increase quality.
They're doing that on their own right now. The government's taking over and forcing that exact concept
because they're not doing it themselves
with value-based purchasing,
because we
didn't do it ourselves. We're being forced to improve our outcomes. We're being forced because they're withholding payment to us, so it's already being done.
So if the government was completely removed from the whole entire debate, hospitals would charge whatever they want to charge for whatever care they want to get, and
it wouldn't matter if you walked out of there a satisfied patient or not. Because
But if I was pissed off and I told all my friends, don't ever go to that hospital ever again, that's not going to matter? No,
because there's HCAP scores and there's other things that are based on reimbursement. So who cares? I'm still going to get reimbursed. If none of that exists, who cares? I don't care if you walked out of here, we amputated the wrong foot. I mean, there's other things that, it doesn't matter. Wouldn't matter how satisfied you were. Wouldn't matter our outcomes. Wouldn't matter if we had...
As it stands right now. As it stands right now.
No, I'm saying if the government wasn't involved in some of the things they're forcing our hand to.
Correct. But now there are hospitals that ACAs come into play, that is out the window. Right,
because hospitals are now being withheld that money and saying, earn it.
You fucking learn a little something on the Primal Scream. You learn a little something.
Love
Nicole,
it.
Thank you so much for being on tonight.
We really appreciate you being on here.
I do. I really
appreciate it.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Do you feel better? Do you feel better at all?
I feel better.
But
yes.
You're pissed off, but I mean
I'm an angry individual, and I am very skeptical, and I will question everything because our government has given us nothing but reasons to be distrustful.
I totally agree, even though I'm more on the
optimistic side of things. If I were to be able to give some advice to people, it would be 1, don't be a passenger. Ask questions. Involve yourself. Have these conversations around the water cooler. Don't just go to one outlet. Don't just trust me and what I'm saying. I don't know shit.
Yeah. The Primal Scream is probably not your number one
It's an opinion. It's an opinion. Now, that's Nicole has some facts behind her, and I looked up things on the internet to try and, to bolster my argument. But everyone has to be involved. You can't just sit and watch TV all night long and all of a sudden end up in the ER and then go, well, I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, listen to sound clips are not going to give you the information you need.
I mean, go to websites that talk about the Affordable Care Act. There's ones that summarize it. There's ones that give benefits. There's ones that talk about it. I mean, look it up. And I mean, it's a thousands of pages document, but there are ways to educate that aren't just, tickers running on CNN or Fox about it, or just the main things that are being discussed. Because there's a lot of
I think is only 992 pages. So
there's just a lot of positive things about it as well. So it's not just, one aspect that's just being discussed. So there's a lot of benefits to it.
And that's the hard part.
There are hospitals that are, very for, pro this type of reform. So, and
I know of a CEO of a hospital who's very pro Affordable Care Act. So we'll have to see.
You know what? You're right. That's correct. And I almost had a physical reaction.
You did. You fucking got. I could just see you react right across.
You were
from
on the phone, dude. I was talking to you on the phone, and you said, "Hey, by the way, this guy's the CEO. He's my friend. You'd love him." I'm like, I'm having a reaction because
I question.
I'm sure he's a fun person, but I would have. Anyway, hey, a few things before we go. If you have time, and you should make time, look up, and I'll have a link. Just click on the goddamn link. It's a Time piece. It's Why Medical Bills Are Killing Us by Stephen Brill. Okay, Time Magazine. It was published.
Fantastic.
It was really, really good.
It's half the magazine. Be prepared.
It's the entire magazine. It's the entire fucking thing. It's a long read, and it's going to really frustrate you. But here's the thing. Big but. Maybe Obamacare, ACA, is going to prevent some of these things, these atrocities that Stephen Brill brings up in his article, okay? It affects all of us. We're all going to die. We're all going to have health issues. Do some fucking yoga. Watch what you eat, okay? Don't always go with the curly fries. I love curly fries, but don't always get them. Don't always get those fucking curly fries. Get some fucking kale chips. They're good.
Oh, they're horrible. You don't have to eat kale chips if you don't want to.
Just put some fucking salt on them. Unless you have high sodium, don't put salt on them. Jesus, so fucking complex.
A great conversation though in that magazine. I definitely read it, and it sounds like the ACA is going to help out with those benefits of costs.
So again, Nicole, thank you for being here tonight. Todd, how are people going to follow us?
Make sure you go to our webpage. It is The Primal Scream.
.org. It's fucking .org. Have you been gone that long? Jesus Christ.
I was catching my breath.
Do I need to do this?
No, that's okay.
Come on, participate.
I think you've talked enough tonight. That's okay. ThePrimalScream.org. You can listen to any of our podcasts there. While you're there, please click to us on Facebook, like our page. We would love to hear from you. Comment all you want. Please comment on any podcast. This will be number 9 in the bag. Almost number 10. A little celebration.
In the bag.
And we do have subscribe to us on iTunes. That'll be super important.
Hey, not only don't just subscribe to us, but if you've listened to a few podcasts and you want to help us out, please comment. Give a star. Give a rating. Stars, give 5 stars. Hey, I know I'm good, but constructive criticism goes a long way. You have a long way to go.
You have a positive?
No, you have a long way to go. You have a really shitty radio voice.
All right, thanks so much. Yeah, please subscribe to iTunes and do comment. We also want to hear from you. So if you have comments about specific podcasts or you have comments in general to us, comment to us. Ask us questions. We could have Nicole back on. We could throw a rock into the whole scheme of things and make it really exciting. It could be like a whole UFC get down with Rock and Nicole. But we want to hear from you. It's super important. And again, to the people who've downloaded us from Japan, domo arigato. We really appreciate that. For all of you who have put us over 400 downloads, we really appreciate it. Keep telling people about us. Keep talking to us about with your friends over the water cooler, whatever it may be. Also, on that webpage, you can go to the donate. Click on donate something to us. If you want to do that, that's awesome. We really appreciate it. The reason why we want you to do that, everything we get from this podcast will go to...
first, overhead costs.
Okay, I can finish my thought.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the first thing we'll do is we're going to take care of overhead costs, and then we're going to make sure anything else goes to donations for a local charity. We have lots in our area. We'll take care of that from our end, but just know that's going to go to a good cause because we're both hardworking middle-class folk, and we're good to go, and we just love talking to you guys.
Yeah, and we would like to help out some local charities too.
I meant we don't take any money because we don't really need it. But that's
that too. Okay. Well, that's it. Fuck it. Go to bed. See you later. Hit end. We're done. We're out of here.
Have a great night.
See you later.
Adios.
Goodbye.